Hello and welcome live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Thanks for tuning in. You are watching The Week Ahead. I am your host, Liesl Wilson. Let's get straight into your headlines at this hour. Leader of the Operation Dudula movement is expected to appear in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court tomorrow. It comes after spending the weekend behind bars. On your screens right now, live visuals from a crowd gathered just outside the Johannesburg Central Police Station. We bring you that story as it develops. In news further afield, US President Joe Biden says Russian President Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power. And on the sporting front, Sergio Perez has claimed the first pole position of his Formula One career. Right, if you've just tuned in, let's take a look at some of the stories we are focusing on for the week ahead. The leader of the Operation Dudula movement is expected to appear in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court tomorrow after spending the weekend behind bars. Nhlanhla Dlamini was arrested on Thursday after a criminal case was opened up against him. A Soweto resident opened the case alleging that Dlamini and other Dudula movement members ransacked his house and accused him of being a drug dealer. Dlamini's legal representative said he was denied police bail at the Johannesburg Central Police Station. Dudula movement members have protested outside the police station. They're calling for the release of their leader. Let us now bring in our reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa in Johannesburg, at the Johannesburg CBD area. Mbalenhle, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us once again. You have been tracking the story throughout the week, obviously seeing various scenarios unfold. Walk us through what has transpired since yesterday. As we're speaking, what's unfolding on your end?
Good afternoon, Liesl. As you know, Operation Dudula leader Nhlanhla Dlamini was arrested on Thursday night and will spend the weekend behind bars. This was established yesterday after lawyers and Operation Dudula leaders made that announcement saying that they last attempt to try and get him out on a warning was unsuccessful. Now, you heard them also issuing out a warning to the police department saying that should anything happen to him while he's in custody, the police will be held accountable. This is after they alleged and made allegations that certain people are being arrested. This is in an effort to prevent him, to get him out of a single cell and to put him together with other prisoners. I'm joined by his lawyer right now, who's going to give us a sense of what is transpiring. Okay, but before we go to the lawyer, I just want to show you what's happening inside there. Over there is an EFF regalia that is being torched. It's being burnt right now. Those are the visuals that you are seeing. The same thing happened yesterday where EFF t-shirt was burnt. I'm just out. These are the scenes. Now, the reason that this EFF regalia is being burnt is because they believe that the reason he's been forced to spend the weekend behind bars is because they're of political interference, and they're particularly blaming the EFF for this. So this is part of the reason why. But you also remember that the reason the leader was also arrested was because when the EFF accompanied a Soweto resident to open a case of theft and malicious damage to property at a Dobsonville police station, which then led to the arrest, which took place on Thursday evening. Now, as I was saying, I'm joined by his legal representative, Advocate Ike Kumalo, who's just going to give us a sense of what's happening and why people have come here. But first, yesterday we heard that warning from the Patriotic Alliance that should anything happen to Nhlanhla Dlamini, the police must be held accountable. Talk to us about the reasons behind such warnings or such words, sentiments.
Because we've got information from intelligence that there is a threat on Nhlanhla's life, and we've been advised that he mustn't eat anything or drink anything. and right now he is complaining about, his stomach. He said he's got stomach cramp, so it's a worrying factor, that, all of a sudden he's got stomach cramps. So, but we received, intelligence report, unofficially, but, we trust those who informed us that, there's a threat on his life.
Now, was an identity parade done? We understand that he was only charged later in the day. Obviously, police saying that they're exercising their 48 hours, on Friday rather, exercising their 48 hours. Talk to us about whether that parade was done.
No, everything here is malicious. They could have charged him earlier, and yesterday for them to say that, they couldn't find a witness. Why identity parade? Because he is well known and he does not deny that he was there, but he denies the charges. So there was no need, for ID parade. I think that, it's delaying tactics because they were supposed to bring him in on Friday, but they failed to do that. They wanted to keep him longer here. Even if they have 48 hours, you don't have to, exhaust 48 hours to the T, to the last minute of 48 hours. The sooner the best, and they didn't do that.
And you talk about a witness, right? Has the witness disappeared? What's going on? What are you saying about it?
By witness, I'm meaning the person who laid the charges, the complainant. The investigating officer said he couldn't find him, yesterday. I don't know why, But, the charges here, they're laughable. I doubt that he'll even be there tomorrow. I'm waiting to see, if he's going to be there tomorrow because he knows himself. The community, they complain. They say, this guy is a drug dealer. Even some of the people who were there, they say he opened for them. I mean, there was no way that Ntlantla could have stolen anything because he was with police. How do you commit housebreaking with the police? They could have arrested him there. And Ntlantla doesn't need to steal. This is a successful businessman who ran his own airline. Why would somebody like that steal, 300 rand for that matter? It's just to humiliate him.
And then, is he definitely going to appear will he certainly appear before a magistrate court tomorrow?
He must appear before a magistrate tomorrow. And we hope that politics won't come into play. We hope that tomorrow we'll talk the law. And in terms of the law, he needs to be released. Actually, he should have been released here at the police station. But, because of prosecutors, they say there's a political interference. That's why they could not release him. I mean, we've been trying from pillar to post. Prosecutors saying they're scared, for their jobs. Yes.
No, thank you so much for speaking to us. There you have it. That was Operation Dudula leader Ntlantla Dlamini's lawyer, advocate Iko Kumalo, just giving us an update on the status of the case, saying that the law prescribes that he must be released after 48 hours, saying that he should have actually been released at the police station, but it seems as though they'll have to wait until he appears before a magistrate tomorrow to hear if he is indeed granted or denied bail. It's back to you in studio.
Thanks, Mbalenhle. I can see activity is picking up since we've obviously last spoken to you, and I wonder if you could just perhaps also comment after having spoken to Advocate Iko Kumalo, Ntlantla Dlamini's lawyer. We've also had reports earlier that the national e-hailing services have also joined in on the protest. I wonder what are some of their concerns and how are they aligned to Operation Dudula, perhaps also what's transpiring there as we speak.
Well, Liesl, just to give you a quick update on that, I did speak to the e-hailing representative and they said that, well, how they align is that they just want law enforcement to take its course and to show up for residents in the event that they call to report acts of criminality within their community, saying that what you saw transpiring last weekend was a failure by the police to then respond to concerns and reports of drug peddling in the community, which then forced this Operation Dudula, which was formed in order to address some of those challenges within those communities, to intervene. And they're saying that to intervene, and obviously this is in an effort to create a better South Africa, saying that many young people are victims or are are falling prey to drug peddlers in communities. And you will remember that it was after that raid that was done last week that led to the EFF accompanying a Soweto resident to a police station where a criminal case was opened against him. And as you've heard from the lawyer saying that Tlantla does not deny the fact that he was present at the home and he does not, but he denies the charges of theft and malicious damage to property, as well as breaking and entry. You also heard the lawyer saying that, you know, the people who are there say that, you know, the complainant is the one who opened the door. They went and they knocked, and the complainant was the one who opened the door, really saying that the case will not hold water, but also reiterating their suspicions of political interference regarding this matter and regarding this case. As you can see, these people are not just Operation Dudula members. You will see that there are also other groupings, community-based groupings that have joined in. Yesterday we saw the Truck Alliance coming to address them, saying that an injury to Tlantla and Lux Dlamini is an injury to all. You will remember that the trucking community has had various protests against certain companies hiring undocumented migrants to drive trucks in South Africa, which has led to a change in terms of legislation in South Africa and labor laws. But as you can see, this is the situation on the ground and could essentially continue, because today people, while they do understand that he will not be released today, they do understand that what they do want to do rather is to pledge their support and to demonstrate in front of this police station for as long as possible. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Mbalenhle. Of course, we have to be responsible at the visuals and the information that is disseminated. But Mbalenhle Mthethwa, you know, giving us the latest on the ground from what is transpiring outside the Johannesburg Central Police Station. Obviously, this as the leader of Operation Dudula movement, expected to appear in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court tomorrow. It comes after having spent the weekend behind bars, supporters gathering outside to pledge their support and allegiance. Again, it's a developing story. We'll continue to monitor it and bring you the latest as it unfolds, and perhaps also take a look at that of what impact it's having across the country, because we've also seen that the launch of Operation Dudula in KwaZulu-Natal has now been postponed, and the postponement again follows concerns. It follows concerns by the city of eThekwini that possible violence may in fact arise during the launch. Our reporter Vusi Kumala has more on that story.
Mr. Tumagote, your planned launch did not get off to a great start.
Yes, you know, we are law-abiding citizens of this country, and we respect the laws of this country as much as we fight for them to be enforced and to be executed. You know what I'm saying? So we are not going to go ahead with something that has not been approved, you know, as an organization. So we are not going to be having a launch that was supposed to be conducted today here in Durban at the workshop, and obviously the other operations that were supposed to be that were part of the plan were supposed to be conducted here in Durban, and then obviously the places that we're supposed to go and visit off whereby you know, maybe there are alleged drug dealings and other things, maybe, you know what I'm saying, because as people knows what Operation Dudula we stand for, you know what I'm saying, and they know very well that we stand against any criminality within our community.
So were you given any reasons as to why did not approve your launch? And also, perhaps if you can just enlist to us to some of these operations that you said are parts of your activities.
Well, we are against the dealing of drugs, especially by the illegal immigrants, that which is being conducted all over South Africa. We were seeing it, young people of South Africa are now addicted to drugs. Some of them are being forced to turn into like sexual to prostitutes, you know what I'm saying, and then they are being fed with drugs, and then from thereafter they are being turned into prostitutes, and we do not agree with that particular conduct of the foreigners, you know what I'm saying?
So any reasons as to why your launch was not given a permission to be staged?
Well, the police says they are, in terms of capacity, they are not ready for such an event, and they encourage us that at least maybe we can engage them after the Easter holidays.
Yes. Did you get perhaps any intimidation from some of the law?
Right, on that note, as we take a look at other news making headlines, perhaps as we take a look at the week ahead, according to the Provincial Department of Social Development, the latest research into poverty in the Eastern Cape shows that an estimated 72% of the population lives well below the poverty line. Now, this is considerably higher than the national average of 60%, where the province's finance MEC Mlungisi Mvoko said in his budget speech that due to an increase in the number of children needing access to school feeding schemes, the budget for this, in fact, had now been boosted. But apart from access to food, the study also highlighted access to clean water and proper sanitation as ways to address stunting and challenges that lie ahead. But perhaps to speak further to this, we are now joined by journalist Estelle Ellis. She's a senior journalist at Maverick Citizen for Daily Maverick. A very good afternoon to you, Estelle. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC today.
Good afternoon.
Estelle, with the spotlight on the Eastern Cape province, I wonder, what are your thoughts on the latest research that you've obviously penned down by the Provincial Department of Social Development into poverty in the Eastern Cape, which, it shows that estimated 72% of the population is living well below the poverty line at this point. What are the socioeconomic dynamics unfolding in that province as we speak?
I think since the start of lockdown 2 years ago, the province have really been set back economically. You'll see we've had negative growth. And I think the people in the rural parts of the province are the ones that are really suffering. So that specific story highlights the number of deaths in the Butterworth Hospital, children who died of severe acute malnutrition, which is something that develops over months. This is not a quick disease that comes over children when they don't have food. It's children not having enough to eat for considerable time. And, if you start to unpack it, you'll realize that the extreme poverty that we are seeing, especially in our rural areas, is also an extreme failure of the system. A lot of people are undocumented. They do not have ID documents, so they cannot access grants. There is a program from the South Africa Social Security Agency that would help you to access urgent need if you are undocumented. That program doesn't seem to work extremely well in a place like Butterworth. So it's it's just that the kids are and it's also the elderly are failed across the board. The health department doesn't have money to appoint health workers who can follow up. They can't access the grants. It's quite shocking if you think that social development had not spent millions of rands. They call it a rollover to expand their beneficiary list, but in a time of high need for food, personally, I think that's not acceptable. If you speak to people like the Red Cross, which is a huge organization and works in the Eastern Cape, their resources are low. They've been giving. All organizations have just been giving and giving and giving food. And even when you speak to organizations who do other types of assistance, they'll say, when they ask their beneficiaries, how can we help? They just say, please, can we get food? Everything else seems to have been put on the back burner. So I think that is where we are in the Eastern Cape at the moment.
Now, Estelle, when we look at the risk factors associated with this issue, compounded by what the finance MEC, in his budget speech said that there's now going to be a budget increase in the number of children needing access to school feeding schemes, and hence that's why they're going to have to boost the budget. I wonder, do you think and expect the nutrition profile of children under 5 at least in the Eastern Cape to worsen or improve, given the increased unemployment rate, the possible food insecurities brought in by the COVID-19 pandemic, amongst other issues? What are you observing?
I think there must be an urgent intervention, especially in the early childhood development program. The school nutrition scheme it's probably not the worst program being run by the Department of Education. They got more money. We've had teachers and school principals telling us that they have to work out meals that cost like R2 per child because of the high number of kids that need to access school nutrition. But where we saw the deaths in the villages and the children that are probably highest at risk are the ones under 5. So for that, we really do need to keep the pressure on and keep the oversight there that the early childhood development programs should be implemented and these high-risk kids must be found. But I do want to add that I think the suffering is across the board. I think it's from children right through to grandparents that are being hit by these terrible socioeconomic circumstances.
Now, a follow-up to that question then with, according to the report, with 62.1 million rand, having been allocated to support the program for both mothers of children under the age of 5 affected by malnutrition, amongst others. I mean, the question also, looks at with the high levels of corruption cases that have also been put forth. I mean, is this actually then going to reach the necessary recipients? And I ask that because we have to look at the long-term effects of this going forward. There are dire consequences amongst brain development, which stunts growth. It affects our future labor force as a country, the quality of life, which places additional strain on facilities, and exacerbates the situation even further. Where to from here in that sense as well then? Is it time national government stepped in?
Yes, I'm hoping that they will. I am not convinced, these programs are being announced. I am not convinced that we have either the capacity or the skills to implement them properly because, even if you take the stats as far ago as 2018, where Dr. Sedora and Ginza Hospital did a study to look at the incidence of malnutrition in the Eastern Cape. So that hospital gets patients mostly from the western part of the province, so that would not include a place like Wasserworth. But even for that, which includes large parts of the Karoo, they already knew in 2018 that malnutrition was becoming a problem. And I think we do need everybody who can step in, and specifically also private sector people that can step in to assist. I think that would be good because one of the things, for example, that I found with this specific story was that the different departments were not aware of the crisis. Say, for instance, the health department had picked up that there were kids dying of severe acute malnutrition. And until today, by Thursday, the Department of Social Development still didn't have their own red alerts going up about it. I had a few phone calls afterwards that it appeared to me that there's no intersectoral communication about this. And surely on something like this, there should be data sharing. There should be red flags going up across departments, to SASA, to social development, to home affairs, to the NGOs, that you can assist. And, I think it's frustrating for the NGOs because, for instance, there are court orders in place that made it very clear that Home Affairs should make it a priority to give ID documents to children. Yeah. And that is plays a huge role in barriers to access social assistance.
The access, the other implementing or having other departments assisting with the documentation process, perhaps just to help them with social relief grant access, was definitely something I wanted to touch on. And thank you that you touched on that point because, the report also touches on how none of the children surveyed had access to piped water in their homes, which speaks to basic service delivery that should be provided by government. And obviously also in your writings, you speak about how there's been an increased need for relief organizations to now then step in and assist with food requests. And this especially happened since lockdown came into effect. What has been the provincial government's response to date, given the statistics that had been highlighted, perhaps national government also, being placed, or being alerted rather to what is happening, where to from here as we really shine a spotlight on the Eastern Cape province, particularly with some of the affected departments?
So I'm not aware of anything that's been done by national department yet. We are, since the start of the new financial year in March, there has been considerable activity from the provincial Department of Social Development we're seeing the press releases of food being distributed. But otherwise, up to now, we've only really had Gift of the Givers have been working fairly hard at the relief of distress. Social Development have now seemed to step up their game a little bit, but it's been quiet. And this also is not a problem that can be addressed by just giving food. It really is a problem that cuts across a whole lot of things, because you would have seen in the report as well that some of those kids were never vaccinated, and some of those children didn't receive their antiretrovirals, and they were called what the nurses call lost to follow up, so they weren't seen again at the clinic after maybe a positive test or after they maybe got their first dose of antiretrovirals. And for that we need health workers, we need people on the ground, but for that we need money. And we know the situation that the provincial health department is in a terrible financial situation. So we really do need, I think, all the help that we can get.
Estelle, thank you very much for joining us here today, sharing that story again, spotlight on the Eastern Cape province and some of the challenges which lie ahead for the province. It comes after some of the latest research emerging into poverty in the Eastern Cape, showing that an estimated 72% of the population lives below the poverty line. Estelle Ellis is a senior journalist and Maverick Citizen for Daily Maverick. Let's take a look at news just further beyond our borders. In fact, Zimbabweans have cast their ballots this weekend in parliamentary and local authority by-elections, which was seen as a yardstick of what is to come in next year's general polls. Zimbabwe's leader of the opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, Nelson Chamisa, has expressed concern over what he says is the low turnout. SABC News correspondent Efford Musikiwa has more on that story.
Most of the results for the parliamentary elections have been declared, and ZANU-PF has won 2 seats that previously were in the hands of the opposition. That is one in the capital city airport, where Nelson Chamisa held his last rally, and where President Emmerson Mnangagwa launched the campaign for ZANU-PF. That seat has gone to airport. It was always it was going to go either way because the airport is highly contested, but this time it went to ZANU-PF. We also have another rural seat in Mutasa, Manicaland, which ZANU-PF has reclaimed from the opposition. So basically, ZANU-PF has actually won 2 seats that previously were in the hands of the opposition, whereas the rest of the seats have been retained by the same opposition candidate who previously occupied them. They've just reclaimed their seats, and ZANU-PF has also reclaimed the seats that belonged to the party in the previous election. Whereas the other opposition political parties that include the MDCT, which is responsible for most of the recalls, they have not even secured a single seat, and no any other party has also secured a seat according to the results that have been declared so far.
That is all the stories for a look at the week ahead. From myself, Liesl Wilson, and the team, until next time, do take care. It's goodbye for now.